day 757 of the Trump administration, and just within these past few hours on a Friday night, we have seen a number of major developments with regard to the Mueller investigation. Tonight, the feds have submitted a sentencing document for Trump's former campaign chair, Paul Manafort, who will soon, we say this because it's germane, turn 70 years of age. This would apply only to the case he's facing in Virginia, where he was found guilty of tax and bank fraud. And this sentence would mean he would be in federal prison until the end of his productive life. The sentencing guideline here is a prison term from 19 to 24 years. Manafort faces a restitution payment of over $24 million, and they suggest Manafort forfeit more than $4 million. The sentencing document is 120 pages long and has copious amounts of information. If Manafort receives a sentence in the recommended range, it would be the harshest to be handed down thus far in the Russia investigation. Then there's his other case in federal court in D.C. and another prison sentence awaiting. The judge in that case this week ruled that he lied to investigators, a violation of his cooperation deal with the feds. There's also news about Paul Manafort's one-time business partner, Roger Stone. Today, Mueller's team filed a document in Stone's case rejecting his request for a different judge. And there, in the document, the feds say for the first time they have evidence of Roger Stone communicating with WikiLeaks as well as Guccifer 2.0. That was the alias used by Russian intelligence to hack into the DNC computers, steal the email, and then leak them. That's notable because Stone has said repeatedly he never directly communicated with Guccifer or WikiLeaks. The federal judge in the case also issued a gag order enough to get Stone to stop talking about the case in ways that would prejudice future jurors.
To storm my house with a greater force than was used to take down bin Laden or El Chapo or Pablo Escobar. They sent fewer men to go after bin Laden than after me. I saw a dozen other FBI agents in the background, all wearing night goggles, full SWAT gear, to make me look guilty in public, to poison the jury pool and make me look like El Chapo or some kind of drug kingpin.
So it's those kinds of interviews the judge is looking to gag. We also learned today, as we mentioned, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been interviewed by the Mueller team sometime in the fall of last year. She put out a statement that says, quote, "The president urged me, like he has everyone in the administration, to fully cooperate with the special counsel. I was happy to voluntarily sit down with them." Reports say the feds are likely interested in what Sanders may have known about the Trump Tower meeting, the cover-up story, and whether she was involved in crafting any misleading statements about that meeting.
The statement that Don Jr. issued is true. There's no
did weigh in, saying that, yes, the president did dictate the statement. Do you want to correct the record on your statement from August when you said he certainly didn't dictate?
Once again, I'm not going to go into detail.
The new Attorney General spent his first day on the job at the Justice Department. Second time in his career he has occupied that office. William Barr was also present in the Rose Garden for the president's announcement of his national emergency.
I want to wish our new Attorney General great luck and speed and enjoy your life. Bill, good luck. A tremendous reputation. I know you'll do a great job.
Enjoy your life. Meanwhile, there are reports that Matt Whitaker, who was the acting AG, is still at the Justice Department, still on the federal payroll, serving as a senior counselor of some sort at DOJ. Let's bring in our leadoff panel for a Friday night. Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterintelligence. We want to welcome to the broadcast Jessica Roth, former federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York, these days a professor at the Cardozo School of Law at Yeshiva University University here in New York. And also with us tonight, Eric Tucker, Justice Department reporter for the Associated Press. Welcome to you all. Frank, I'd like to begin with you. We'll go Manafort first, and then later in the discussion, we will handle Mr. Stone. It's a lot, but we can get through it. What did you learn today in the documents you read, especially Manafort and his buddy and business partner, Mr. Kilimnik?
The judge does not like Mr. Manafort's position on things, doesn't like the fact that he's lied, slammed him for lying about very substantial issues at the core of the special counsel investigation. And we're all left to wonder why the lies continue, why he continued to lie to the special counsel and the court about what he knows and who he met with. And it's looking more and more, Brian, like Manafort has such substantial information in his possession that if he let it out, it would not only bring him down, but bring down others. And so I'm left to conclude through observation and what we've learned so far that he has the goods regarding Russian cooperation with the Trump campaign, and likely knows the degree to which, if any, this president was aware of Russian quid pro quo deals involving aiding the campaign. That's what this is looking like after today's revelations.
Frank, I even came across a quote, page 27 of the judge's document here, that says, she mentioned something that says, gives rise to legitimate questions about where his loyalties lie. In other words, this question we've been dealing with on our broadcast, is Manafort playing for the home team or the opposition?
She wasn't even buying all of his medical conditions. She noted that, you know, you're trying to claim you have gout, but I note that we're not hearing any evidence that you had it at the time you claim you were confused and under stress and couldn't remember things. She distinctly said, I'm not buying the I can't recall, I was stressed argument. And I find it interesting that you stood here at a podium and earlier in the proceedings, and now you're in a wheelchair and claiming that you're under stress. She wasn't buying any of it, Brian.
Counselor, first of all, welcome. Second, we note that there's the usual collection of this goes on for pages and pages and pages, by the way. But in the words we're allowed to see, what stood out to you?
So a couple things stood out to me. One was how carefully the judge documented her findings that Manafort had lied in a material way to the special counsel. And she was clear that she wasn't relying, for example, only on representations by Gates, but also corroborating documentary evidence. So she was very careful to document it, and also to make clear that he wasn't just perhaps misremembering at times, as had been suggested by his counsel, but that he was actually promoting false narratives that were quite detailed, which are just inconsistent with the notion that he just was caught unawares and was confused at the time that he was interviewed. But the redactions actually stood out to me the most.
I'd love to hear why.
So when we get close to Kilimnik, we see more redactions. We see redactions a bit about this payment that was made, but it's really when we get to Kilimnik that we see most redactions. Then we have a reference to another DOJ investigation that's not described in any more detail, and then these pages and pages of redactions that we don't know what those pertain to at all. And what that suggests to me is that there is more to come from Mueller on matters that he has characterized as core to his investigation, namely collusion or coordination between the Trump campaign and Russian officials. The only justification for continuing to redact this transcript and to close these hearings is that there is an ongoing investigation to protect. And so it strikes me that predictions that Mueller is nearly done and wrapping up are premature.
And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you are new to us and this broadcast, a kind of a fresh opinion when you read all those articles, and there's one a week that they're wrapping up. This is almost the end. This is direct evidence to you not to believe that.
It's certainly what we might call circumstantial evidence to me that they are not done, and there have been references by Mueller's attorneys to the fact that there are ongoing investigations that must be protected. Michael Cohen's testimony was postponed in light of ongoing investigations. To me, these are signals that there's more to come. We also have in the Roger Stone case, we know that his associate, Mr. Miller, had been subpoenaed before the grand jury and was told he still needed to come even after the initial indictment against Roger Stone. A grand jury subpoena subpoena can only be used to gather evidence of additional charges. So that suggests to me, along with what we saw today in the Roger Stone case, that there's more to come with respect to Roger Stone.
Wow. All right, Eric. So you covered the Manafort matter in Virginia. We remind our viewers when we talk about this potential 24-year prison sentence for a 70-year-old man, this is just the case in Virginia. We haven't gotten to the federal court in D.C. yet. What should we know about that case, about what went on there?
So it is entirely a financial fraud case involving work that Paul Manafort was doing, his international and political consulting and lobbying work. It had nothing to do with the Trump campaign. And that's something that he was sort of continuing to pursue in 2015. And then 2016, he winds up taking a job with the Trump campaign. And he had been under investigation then even before the special counsel. The one thing that I thought was really notable about the government sentencing memo was just how unsparing it was in its assessment of Paul Manafort's conduct. Ordinarily, you see an attempt to acknowledge a potential mitigating factor in a defendant's behalf and say, this indeed might be a reason to give some leniency. So-and-so has led an exemplary life up until this point.
None of that here.
But none of that here. Mueller said it is all stacked in the ledger of aggravating factors. There's not a single, there are zero mitigating factors in his favor, which was really startling.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.